Hello there, Year 10. Welcome along to Turn 3, Lesson 10. And we're going back today to look at the evaluation of a live theatre performance. That live theatre performance is things that I know to be true. And our objectives for today's session are: we're going to identify an appropriate moment to analyse and evaluate within that live theatre performance. So far, I have given you those moments. Today, I'm going to ask you to select your own. It can be a moment that we have done as a class, but actually you need to select that. Or it can be a moment that you have selected within some of the notes that you made when you first watched the production, or a moment that stands out to you for whatever reason. The second objective is we're going to analyse and evaluate a section within that live theatre performance using the appropriate subject terminology, making sure that it links back to the question, so on and so forth. So, the resources that you are going to need for today: you're going to need your drama book or notepad, paper and pen. You're going to need things that I know to be true loaded on Digital Theatre Plus, and you're going to need the circle map for today's lesson. I'm going to ask you to pause the video now, come back when you have those resources ready and waiting. Wonderful. Okay, so the question on the screen in front of you is a question that you might get within your Component 1 written exam at the end of next year. So it's going to be very similar, if not exactly the same, but it's a 32-mark question, and I'm going to go through it right now with you. So, describe how one or more actors in a particular scene or section use their vocal and physical acting skills to create convincing characters. Analyse and evaluate how successful they were in communicating their character to the audience. You should make reference to the use of voice, physical skills, the actor's use of space. Now, before we do anything else, I want you to just take 10 seconds. What do you need to consider about this question? What do you need to pick out of that question to make sure that you are doing it correctly when you come to answer it? And all I want you to do is just take 10 seconds to write on the piece of paper in front of you the key words within that question. Now, I haven't put a pause point in, but it might be that you want to pause the video now for just 10 to 30 seconds to write down those key words. So if you're going to do that, pause the video now. Now, to help you, what I have done is I have highlighted the keywords. There are some very important keywords where it says you should make reference to, and then the bullet points underneath. That is a separate part. I'm going to come on to talk about that in a second. So, describe how, and in yellow, I have put one or more actors. You can talk about one actor if you are talking about a monologue, or you can talk about multiple actors if you are talking about a scene. Even if you are talking about a scene with multiple actors in it, if you just want to talk about how one person acts within that scene, then you can just talk about them. There is no right or wrong answer. The question is clear: one actor or lots of actors. It's up to you, okay? In a particular scene or section. Now, a particular scene or section, that is one moment within the play, okay? So I wouldn't expect to see within your answer you talking about, say, let's say, for example, Pip at the beginning of the play and then at the end of the play, because there are multiple sections between those two moments, okay? So it needs to be a particular scene or section. So say, for example, Rosie's monologue at the beginning of the play. That would be a scene or a section, okay? Pip's monologue would be a scene or a section. The opening scene, when Rosie's family come home, when Rosie comes home to see her family, that would be a section, okay? Now, I would avoid doing a section that lasts too long. 10 minutes would be my maximum, okay? So a scene which lasts for about 10 minutes or less. And again, this is not clear cut. It could be slightly less, it could be slightly more, it could be significantly less. There's no right or wrong way to do this, but what I would say, a scene or a section is probably a continuous narrative within a section of the play. So while they're on a particular topic, a particular point, a particular conversation, on a particular character or a particular set of circumstances, that is a scene or section. And when that circumstance or that objective changes, that's when the section changes. So that is quite clear. But again, just a scene or a section. And then we go on to talk about use their vocal and physical acting skills. You know these, okay? Very, very simple. You've got a list of them in your drama book. You just need to make reference to those. To create convincing characters, analyse, Now, analyse is something that I think we're very good at. Analyse is the how and the why, okay? What does it show? So, for example, you've got describe, which is the opening word of this question. So you describe how they use the vocal and physical skills, and then you analyse. What does it show? What does this pitch show? What does this facial expression show? And then you evaluate how successful they were in communicating their characters to an audience. So evaluate is what was good, what was bad, okay? How did it impact you as an audience member? Evaluation is all about your perspective. Evaluation should start with I, okay? And it should be, as an audience member, I thought this. I thought that. I thought this was really effective. I thought this could have been improved, and this is what I might do. But that's where the evaluation is. I'm going to come on now to talk about you should make reference to. It says you should make reference to, so you need to make reference to it. It's the requirement of the question. In some of the questions, it says you might consider making reference to. Now, that is a different thing, okay? And then you don't need to make reference to it because you only need to consider it. But you should make reference to the use of voice, use of physical skills, and the actor's use of space. Now, I think we've got voice and physical skills down reasonably well. Use of space, don't let it confuse you. You talk about space and interactions within a question in Blood Brothers. What are the things that you would be expected to talk about in that scene? And you can apply it to this scene. So, say, for example, we might talk about, for space, proxemics. We might talk about levels. We might talk about the positioning of the actor or the characters on stage. We might talk about the movement and the way the character moves around the space on the stage. We're probably unlikely to talk about stage type, but actually, if they have interacted with the audience, you might even talk about stage type there. It's not really appropriate with things that I know to be true, but you've got 4 really solid references there. It might actually be worth noting those down so that you can complete this next task to the best of your ability. So I said proxemics, I said levels, I said positioning on stage, and I said movement around the stage. Okay, so the way that they moved around that stage. Now, our main task today is to complete the 3 sections of the map that you see on the screen in front of you, and also the small box at the top of the screen. Now, I'm going to start off with the box. Before we complete anything in the map, you need to tell me the title of the performance and the theatre company who were involved in developing that. If you can tell me who wrote it, if you can tell me who directed it, by all means do. But definitely the title and the theatre company who made it famous. You need to tell me the date of the performance. And you need to tell me the style of the performance. So those 3 things you need to tell me, and that would be the introduction within your answer. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to just write it down very simply in your map at the top. So if you don't know what those things are, first of all, start off by looking on Digital Theatre Plus. Second of all, Google it. Third of all, take your best guess. I'm not going to tell you today, okay, because I think that's a little bit too easy, and I'm going to work you a little bit harder. So you need to tell me the title of the performance and the theatre company. If you know the theatre company, you at least know part of the style, okay? This theatre company is very, very, very famous for a particular style of theatre, okay? And the date of the performance, now you can tell me the date that you watched it, but also tell me the original recording date of that performance, okay? So, once we've got the top of that box filled in, we then move on to the map. Now, you will need to have selected a moment from things that I know to be true. Now, this is a moment of your choice. It might be that this is a moment that we've looked at before. If you would like to look, say, for example, at Pip's monologue, then you are most welcome to do that, but you cannot use your notes from that, okay? It needs to be from memory. If you would like to use a moment from, say, the opening of the play where Rosie returns home to Halleck Cove, then you are most welcome to do that again, but you cannot use the notes from that. If you would like to choose a moment that we have not reviewed as a whole group, then you can also do that. There's no right or wrong way to do that. Notice that on the screen in front of you that I have got an example map. This is from Metamorphosis. It is not from things that I know to be true. So ignore all of the content. The example is only there to help you with structure. Okay, so start off with an overview of the scene, and you can put that within the circle. And notice that there's no division lines there because the scene is relevant to all moments that you are going to talk about within that scene. So the first circle, just give me an overview of the scene. So what happens? Where are we in these characters' lives? Where are we within that play? So if I give you a metamorphosis example, Mr. Samsa has come home to witness the destruction that Gregor has caused. Gregor is now roaming around the house, and Gregor has escaped from his room while Mrs. Samsa and Greta were cleaning his room. Very, very nice and simple. I've just given a very, very brief overview, which is going to be appropriate to the 3 moments within that scene that I talk about in specific detail. Circle number 2, moment of specific reference within the scene with a quote. Okay, you have the opportunity to do that because you have a video recording. So, I've given my moment. Mr. Samsa enters Gregor's room. He is shocked to see what has happened. So I've gone from my overview to a specific moment within that section, okay? And then I've got 2 quotes. Now, it might be that you just have 1 quote that you want to talk about. That is absolutely fine. It might be that you've got a couple of quotes. But again, I'm narrowing down from my very broad overview in Circle 1 to my more specific moment within Circle 2. And then I move on to Square 1. And what I then do is I need to identify vocal and physical skills that were used on that moment, and I need to describe them. So again, for quote 1, I've got a quiet volume with a confused tone. With quote 1, he placed his hands in front of him with his hand gestured towards the sky. So again, I'm using correct terminology. I'm really describing those moments, and I'm using appropriate and I'm using appropriate subject terminology to do that. So I've got that in Square 1. In Square 2, we then move on to the analysis. So what the description means. So what the use of those vocal and physical skills meant to you as an audience member. How it effectively communicated the character to you. And so I've got that in Square 2 for you to look at, but I'd like you to just read that by yourself. I'm not going to go through those moments. So again, for you, all you need to do is you go quote moment, you go then a description of that character and the skills that they use. So that would be, in this case, vocal and physical skills, but it could also be space because they're the requirements of the question. And then finally, we go on to the analysis. So what does that mean? Analyse how the use of vocal, physical skills and also space effectively communicated a particular circumstance, feeling or emotion of one or more characters within the scene. And then finally, the evaluation part. We go to Square 3, evaluate how successful the actor or the actors were in using and communicating their circumstances through vocal and physical skills to you as an audience member. So you can tell me what was really good. So again, I'm going to just very quickly go through Square 3 with you. So in Metamorphosis, the actor's use of quiet volume was effective in creating disbelief in the initial moments of the scene. As the scene progressed, the volume increased, and it was easy for the audience to understand the character's frustrations and anger towards the situation. That's really, really simple because I'm just saying I thought this was really impactful for me as an audience member, and this is why I thought that. I'm using my evaluation. And really, when we come on to talk about evaluation, we really should be using the word audience to do that. So, I am now going to allow you to move off. This task should take you 30 to 45 minutes, and you should have all 3 sections of the map filled in good detail. Okay, if you have any questions about this, please of course contact me. I'm happy to go through this with you, but you're selecting your own moment this time. You're giving your overview of the scene, and then you talk about 3 moments in specific detail, describing the vocal, physical and space skills or terminology that is appropriate to that. You analyse those moments, and then you evaluate them and how successful they were in communicating the character to the audience. So, submitting your work. I have sent you an email with the due date. Please make sure that that date is adhered to. and please submit this work through the relevant assignment in Microsoft Teams. And what am I going to need for today? All I need is a copy of today's circle map, analysing and evaluating a section from things that I know to be true. That is a section of your choice, and all 3 sections of the map need to be completed before you submit it. Now, if it takes you longer than 45 minutes, you may spend 15 to 30 minutes completing it for homework. Thank you very much for your time. I hope that everything has been clear. I look forward to speaking to you again very soon.